As an artist, Walt Disney knew that the key to bringing his parks to life would be the background on which all the other elements would be displayed. Nowhere are the gardens more varied and dramatic, or the scope of the landscaping more incredible than at Walt Disney World in Florida.
Hi, I'm Connie Willis, and I'd like to welcome you to Walt Disney World at Home Garden Magic.
And I'm Don Noderer. We're here in the Rose Walk of the Magic Kingdom, where there's over 50 varieties of roses and hundreds of smiling faces. Two of our more famous faces are right here.
Don, these gardens welcome 25 million people a year. So almost daily, someone will take a look at one of the spectacular gardens and say, how do you do that? Well, that's what the Walt Disney World at Home Garden Magic is all about. We're here to show you how it's done so that you can take the Disney magic home to your garden.
Well, Connie, these gardens do a lot of different things. They direct our attention. They complement the architecture. They give us a sense of time and place, and they surround us in beauty.
And they delight us too.
They sure do.
Gardens are inherently magical, delighting children as well as adults.
You know, and there are 6 things that the Disney gardens endeavor to do, and if you at home can accomplish all or most of these in your garden, then you'll bring that Disney garden magic home. Tell a story with your garden. Be sure to put an emphasis on detail. Use and delight in color. And don't be afraid to put fun in your garden. Take care of the earth, and remember that a garden is something that is a wonderful place to be, to observe, and discover.
It is, and our show is going to focus on these keys because it gives us a place to start. Gardens, like poems, they never seem finished. We return to them again and again with new thoughts of making them better.
And you'll discover a wealth of ideas and techniques that will make your garden unique.
You'll also meet Walt Disney World expert gardeners who are going to show us how to create portable gardens, parterre gardens, how to tell a story with plants, topiary, and the importance of environmental gardening. Don, what could be more magical than taking a garden with you? Bringing it inside or taking it outside. Maybe you're going to move it for good reason, or maybe you're just going to do it on a whim. Well, portable gardens allow you to do that and a lot of other things.
And Connie, portable or container gardens are really gardens with their own special qualities. And it's interesting to note that here at Walt Disney World, where gardening is done on such a grand scale, that so much imagination and time is spent on these smaller gardens.
And there's various types of portable gardens here that you can see at the Italy Pavilion and throughout Walt Disney World Resort, some of which you may want to include in your garden at home. We're going to show you how to make some hanging baskets and also floating gardens.
We've got some real experts too.
One of the people here that create portable gardens at Walt Disney World is Heather Will Brown, and they are works of arts too. Heather, hi there, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Heather. How are you doing?
Hi.
Show us these works of art here.
We have flowers in all types of containers throughout the Walt Disney World property. We have them in hanging baskets, in window boxes. This is one of our more unique types of gardens. It's a portable floating garden.
Unique is a good word for this.
Well, Heather, they really are unique, and I have to tell you, a couple of years ago, my wife and I came to the Spring Flower Show. I think that's an annual event, isn't it?
It sure is. It's the Epcot International Flower and Garden Festival.
Well, it is spectacular. I've got to tell you, if you haven't come down, it's worth coming just for that in the springtime. Well, anyway, we were, I think it was here in Epcot, we were walking across a bridge that has the large water on both sides. And these huge splashes of color were just floating in the water. And I'd never seen anything like it.
They're
so that's what this
beautiful.
is.
Yes, beautiful planters that you can use in the water, and they're not as difficult to make as it may look. All you really need are about 4 sheets of this polystyrene, and you want to cut it in a circle. 2 sheets will be glued together. You make sure that your knife is thick enough that it'll go through the entire width here when you cut it. But you glue 2 pieces together with a glue that is compatible with the polystyrene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you'll take 2 more large pieces, cut another circle, and make like a donut here. And this you will put on the top.
Okay, so that creates the rim.
Creates the lip.
On the top.
That's
all right.
exactly right.
Great.
And you paint
what
it
else
black?
do we do here?
We paint it black, and we use a water-based acrylic type paint.
Connie, I have to tell you, I've had some experience with polystyrene and paint.
What did you do?
Water-based is very important because if you use an enamel paint, it will literally just eat the polystyrene, and it's a very sad sight.
As you sprayed, it just
it did.
wilted
It
in
just
front of
was
you.
gone.
It's
So
a
water-based is
disappearing
very
film.
important.
Yeah, disappearing.
The next thing that you'll need to do is make sure that you have this capillary matting.
Okay, this is
Now,
kind
I've
of
seen
a
this
felt.
before under carpet, right?
Kind of like a felt
Yeah.
Okay.
matting for a carpet. We buy this particularly from a horticulture supply company. There's also a wick that goes through the bottom of this
all right,
floating
yeah.
garden. That goes into the water through a hole here, and that will absorb water up. So this waters itself.
Oh, you don't have to water it.
You don't have to water. And then eye bolts are here in the either end here.
Right.
That's so that you can hook it on the bottom with an anchor.
So that
And then it
keeps it
won't
from
float on.
floating away.
Yeah, the wind blows
Floating
it.
away.
I wondered about that. What about when the rain comes? Is this just going to fill up with water and just soak?
Well,
all the plants you have in here?
but we have weep holes. So halfway up, drill some holes or make some holes, punch holes around here so that if it fills up, the water can
drain.
drip back
Oh,
out.
okay, we haven't got to
Drain
that
out.
point yet on this one, so we would do that next.
So then what happens?
You can plant it with just about anything you would like. If you make sure that it's for full sun, if you're going to float this in the middle of a water of a little lake or a pond. But we certainly have some beautiful impatiens that we put in these in the spring and in the fall. And if you wanted a more tropical effect, you could plant this with tropical things too.
You want to stay away with these from pools, don't you? You don't want these in pools.
No, because it would absorb that chlorine,
chlorine and
Oh, I was
kill
just
everything.
thinking, I have this new swimming pool, and I thought about this little party we're going to have in the spring, but I suppose we could do it if we didn't have the wick.
Yeah.
But then I'd
you
have to
possibly
water it.
could. You make sure that you would water it.
Right.
It'd be just more
Well, we
work
have
for
a
you.
completed one over here that just looks spectacular.
That is gorgeous.
And this entire thing just floats in the water. And the impatiens, they're so prolific. They just bloom.
How long will something like this last?
We can keep this in the waterway for 3 to 4 months.
That's terrific.
The annual bedding plants. If you have a tropical plant material in here, you could keep it out there for quite a bit longer until it overgrew the container.
What about the container? How long will that last?
The container itself will last a fairly long time, possibly up to a year. But to make it last longer, you can coat it with a fiberglass resin, and that will make it last a
That'll
little bit
protect it.
longer.
Well, Heather, these floating gardens really are great if you have a pond or a pool in the backyard. But how do we capture this splash of color without the water?
Smooth
Splash.
talker.
Splash, I like
Beautiful.
that. We have other ways of magic here. Another way of gardening is with our hanging baskets, our containers at eye level. They draw your eye right to that beautiful burst of flowering color. Sometimes there's a fragrance in the air with these baskets. We use them to complement the architecture, to help us tell a story with the theming. They may even just be matching a bedding plant bed in the area.
I have seen them all over the place here at Walt Disney World. They're everywhere.
We have over 5,000 hanging baskets a year on
5,000?
display.
Wow. That
Yes.
explains seeing them everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And how many do you actually do? You have a large amount of people,
I
I'm
do
sure.
several, right?
you?
I don't do the whole
Thousands and
5,000. No. I'm going to show you how we make a hanging basket, and it's real simple. Not too much to it at all. You have to have a couple basic supplies here.
Simple enough that we can do this?
Simple enough.
All
yes.
right. That means you can. If we can, you can.
Now you want to make sure you wear gloves when we start, because when you work with this sphagnum moss, you want to have gloves on in the event that you get poked with a stick or you have a cut. You don't want to get an infection. Even when you work with soil, it's a good idea to wear some type of protection on your hands.
Okay.
So we put on our gloves. We
I'm gonna let you
moisten
do
this
this, Connie.
sphagnum
all mine.
beforehand. But you can moisten it with a hose, or you could just sprinkle some water in here and spritz it around. If you fill it completely up, it's a little bit wet and hard to work with. So you just want to try and moisten it.
So just wet enough to be able to compact it all together.
Right, you just compact it in your hand very tightly here. I've already started at the bottom. And in each of these little compartments, and only think of one at a time, don't try and do this whole basket at once.
Okay.
You compress as much of this as you can into one section before you move to the next one. And this can take a long time. It may take you an hour or more if you're not used to doing this.
Whoa, so it'll take us 2 hours maybe,
probably.
you think?
Could
It
take
would
you-
me. I'll speak for myself here.
Could take you a while. So you stuff it, that's how we stuff it. And you want to make sure that as you're stuffing it, you're compressing it with both hands because you want it to be as thin as possible yet cover the wire. If you stuff this so wide, it will be so wide that you can't even put a fist in here, let alone plant your bedding plants. So
Right.
leave plenty of room. Keep that nice and tight.
Okay.
Now
This
here,
reminds me of building a float in high school for the homecoming
Yeah,
float.
and
a
you're gonna-
sphagnum float.
Very close.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't use sphagnum though.
Okay, here's a completed basket, and I'm going to show you how we would
Beautiful.
plant that. We have some small begonia plugs here on the table.
What about this wire though before you do
Ah.
this? Because how did you get that in there? I didn't notice it before.
You just evenly attach the 3 prongs of the hanger, and you want to make sure that you hook it on here tightly.
Okay.
This basket can weigh a lot, and you want to make sure this is secured on very, very tightly.
I've seen that in a tackle box somewhere. What is that?
You'd think the
You'd think
you'd
the
think
man
he'd
would
That's
know.
Right.
Oh, I'm a
That's right.
gardener, not a fisherman. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is a fish swivel. It sure is. That allows the basket to spin freely, so that if you have it under the eave of your home, all the baskets aren't stretching
Well,
out in
that's
one
exactly what has
direction.
happened. I've had a basket that I purchased from the garden center, and I just hung it up there on the eave, but without the swivel, and it all grew to one side.
Oh.
So this keeps it growing evenly.
Allows it to turn. That's
Well,
right.
that's very
It's easy for
clever.
maintenance too, because you can stand in one spot and trim
Right.
it that way.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go with the plant.
Yes, the small baby plants, and you can see these are a smaller size. When we're planting in the side, like we're going to do now, I'm going to show you how we would make a ball. When
Okay.
you plant in the side, the smaller plugs survive better. If you have to tear off a lot of roots, sometimes you end up losing a lot of them. So you want to use a small plant if you can. These are little pink begonias. You have a dibble. This is a tool we use to poke a hole. Actually, I believe these are used also for planting bulbs.
Okay.
Okay,
But,
a dibble.
A dibble. You can use a sharpened stick if you wanted a broom handle. We poke a hole about halfway up the basket, and then we're going to insert our little begonia right in there.
And that's it.
That's it. And you're just going to put 6 around the side. That's all that are required.
6 is all you need.
Right. That's all that's required when we're
Wow.
planting a ball.
Okay.
So we would place the 6 around the side, and then we'd fill it with this
Let's fill
loose,
it up.
nice, well-drained soil that we already have here in the box.
And what kind of soil is this?
Well, it's really what you call a soilless mix.
Very
and
light.
Very light.
Very light, made up primarily of peat and perlite.
Okay.
So it's very light,
Yeah.
light mix. And then we would take 6 of these little plugs, and you would just put them evenly around the top of this basket.
This is too easy.
Incredible, isn't it?
Look easy, doesn't it?
Incredible.
Too easy.
Now you just water it in good. You want to get this watered thoroughly. We would add some fertilizer to the top of this. We would add first we would add this time release fertilizer, so that as it watered, each time as you watered it, a little bit would come off. You would add this at the time you planted it. And then this, when you water it, you would add that to the water once a week. You
Weekly.
dissolve it in water, and that would feed
And you
it.
have to water these quite a lot, don't you? Because they dry out very quickly.
During the summer months here, we have to water these every day very thoroughly.
And
Yeah.
how long will it take before we see this beautiful thing to
Yeah,
our
look at
left?
that.
3 months.
3
3
months.
Yes.
Wow.
With a little
Water
time,
and fertilizer and
patience, some
Yeah.
fertilizer.
well, you know, I can see these
Beautiful.
looking, for folks that might live in an apartment or a condominium, or, they wouldn't, or a patio area that don't have, can't do a regular garden. This would be a real alternative that would be good for them, wouldn't it?
Beautiful.
Sure is. It's a space saver, and it's doesn't take a whole lot of an investment to make one of those. You have to give it a haircut too while they're out there. If it's a ball like this one, you're going to trim it in a globe shape. You're just
Okay.
going to imagine a globe, and you're just going to trim away.
Just going to cut those things off, huh?
Right.
Oh.
If it's one like this that you've planted in the top,
Right.
and it's a cascading type material, maybe a petunia or pansies in the alyssum, you're going to treat it more like a shag haircut, and you're going to layer it. You want to keep the seed pods and the old flowers off of there to
That will
promote
keep it
new
blooming.
ones. Right.
So a gardener and a hairstylist at the same time. Thank you very
Well,
much,
thank
Heather.
you. Those are 2 very
You're
interesting
Made it look
containers.
very easy too.
Good growing.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I think we can do that.
We can do that. To make a floating planter for your pond, you'll need 4 2-inch sheets of polystyrene, waterproof glue and black acrylic spray paint compatible with polystyrene, a florist's knife, scissors, a capillary mat, 1-inch washers for anchors, a 4-inch eye bolt and nut, some nylon cord to secure the garden to the anchor, an anchor, a plastic milk container filled with sand works well, some bedding plants, and soilless potting mix.
To make a hanging begonia ball basket, here's what you'll need. A 10 to 14-inch wire basket and wire hanger, a bait swivel, unmilled sphagnum moss, some gloves, a planting dibble or a sharpened stick will do, some scissors, a bucket for watering the sphagnum, potting soil, 12 small wax begonia plants, and some fertilizer.
Well, flower beds are the special element in a garden. They add color. They're the true gems of the garden.
Yeah, they are, and they can be found year-round here at Walt Disney World.
Every day of the year.
Yeah, and if you can imagine it, over 3 million flowers are planted here each year.
Yeah. Well, you know, the most complicated and intricate of all flower gardens is the patterned parterre. And we're often asked, how do we create these?
I'll try to answer that for you. The Magic Kingdom Mickey Mouse Floral Parterre. It's planted several times a year with approximately 2,000 4-inch bedding plants.
That's a lot of flowers.
It sure is. It also takes a team of gardeners just to replant it each time. 7 to 8 hours is the amount of time. And when people like to come up and they want to get a closer look and they want to take a picture of it, well, another 25 hours goes into maintenance to keep it looking as good as it does.
It's definitely a high maintenance garden, but it's worth it. I especially like the combination of the 3 different colors of sweet alyssum.
Gives it some definition.
And there's a good reason they call it sweet alyssum. Smell that. The spectacular effect of parterre gardens, like intricate embroidery, obviously requires a great deal more time, funds, and space than we're used to considering in other forms of gardening.
Yeah, and you know, Don, I think that's probably because we've been put off by the massive size of public gardens. You know,
Yeah.
if you think of parterre gardening in a smaller scale, then it's a lot of fun, and definitely a surefire way to meet your neighbors, because they're going to want to come out and check out your one-of-a-kind garden.
So parterre is the way to meet your neighbors.
Definitely, if that's what you
All
want
right,
to do.
that's another reason to do a
That's the way
parterre
to do it.
garden.
We have an expert parterre gardener with us, and he's going to help us out on parterre gardening and what to do. His name is Terry Helam. Terry, how you
Hi,
doing?
Terry.
Pleased to meet you. How are you
Welcome.
doing?
Parterre, French?
Yes, it's from the French word meaning on the ground, and it's a very old type of gardening. In fact, over at the France Pavilion, we have the Le Notre Garden, and there we have this parterre de broderie, which means kind of embroidery on the ground. And what we've done there is designed the hedges to look like the embroidery, and we use a color for crushed brick or rock. That gives the color, the contrast, nice sharp edges. In fact, some of the parterres that you can see around at the Walt Disney World here is things like the Le Notre Garden, as I've said, which is a fleur-de-lis surrounded by an ilex hedge. We have the International Gateway Parterre, which is this humongous fleur-de-lis and emblazoned during the summertime with this bubbling color of annuals, again surrounded by a hedge. We have at the UK Pavilion the Knot Garden, and the fascinating thing about this is you've got the hedges looking like ropes overlapping, hence the knots, and you create these pockets, and in these pockets you can put the kind of plant material that you want. Here at Epcot we've put herbs in. Hampton Court Garden, we've copied that from the Hampton Court Palace, and created an effect where we've got these dwarf podocarpus hedges and ilex hedges surrounding a miniature rose garden. One of the nicest things I've seen here is the design where we utilize not only a hedge but the flowers inside.
How would you sum up the garden magic here? What's particular, you know, for our home gardeners with parterre gardening?
With the magic, it's kind of like the surprising things you can do with these kind of plants. The design is entirely up to you, it's up to your imagination. The design can be serious or it can be funny. That's kind of like the surprise you get.
Now, where does this start though?
Yeah, how do we
you
start this? You know, we see these beautiful, pictures. I think of it as just a picture that you painted with flowers, but how do you start?
Basically, it starts right up here. You've got to create an image in your mind. And then from that point, what you want to do is, and I've used your logo here as a design, what you're going to do is actually
there's our man.
Put it on paper. And the easiest thing to do is actually graph it out. Because that way you can actually use the squares. For example, let's say one square is an inch, you could translate that to a foot. And that way, so 10 inches would be 10 feet. And that way you can come up with a design.
With gardening, it seems that a lot of times with gardening, we have to be artists as well.
In a way, but
just kind of draw it out and put it on paper,
it.
and then.
And if you want to start off
create.
with basic designs to begin with, as you get used to it and more experience, that way you can create more elaborate designs. Once you got to this point, what you're going to do then is use stakes with string, and you're actually going to knock these into the ground and string out maybe a square, for example, and then every foot you're going to peg it and actually cross your lines.
So we actually create a grid.
Exactly, on the ground.
On the ground.
And then you kind of like cheat. What you do then is you kind of like use this. It's you can use white sand, flour, things like that, anything that will show up on the ground.
Right.
And you actually pour this around following the design that you've got.
That's your outline.
Then
So
you
we
step back.
create
Now,
the-
the nice thing about it is where we cheat, if you've made a mistake, you can go in and you can just
Rub
it
it out.
out.
Erase it.
Exactly.
All right.
And another thing, again, because it's such a great design, when you actually, like for the Mickey head, you can actually place a stake in the center right here and then string it out and just create.
Perfect
And then you create the
circle.
radius or the circle.
Exactly.
Right.
And then for the ears, just two smaller ones.
Right.
Same thing.
And of course, with the roof, it's easy.
Uh-oh, I
Straight
see a
lines.
Mickey Mouse parterre in my backyard.
Now should you try to find, you don't want a flat area, you want it kind of propped up a little,
Yeah,
don't
something
you?
on a slight angle.
So you can actually see it.
Exactly.
What kind of plant material do we use?
Okay,
how do
well-
once we've got a design
That's
going.
a good start.
Basically, anything with color, what you want to use is things like this.
Let's see, this is dianthus, isn't it?
This is dianthus
Right.
and,
Beautiful.
and
Marigolds,
too.
my favorite.
Right, exactly, and they're easy to maintain. They're colorful. They bush out. They fill in. It's a striking color.
Beautiful.
Yeah, these very, the smaller, stockier plants with lots of blooms.
That's what you're
are-
after. Compact plants.
Okay, and what other kinds of plant material then? Oh, you mentioned some hedges.
Voila.
Perfect. This is Altananthera.
What? Alta what?
Altananthera.
Okay, give me the real name.
Joseph's King.
There
Okay.
you go.
Okay.
That's pretty. It's very pretty.
Keep it simple for
very
us,
much
Lee.
right. And this is dwarf holly. And what you're after is things that respond well to close clipping.
So you keep it
as
trimmed.
these do. Exactly. That gives you that
And
definition.
that creates
Is
the
this
edge.
the border, basically?
Right. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
hedge?
Kind of intersect the flowers too.
What else have we got here?
These
petunias.
Beautiful.
Right.
Those are smaller. Are those a different kind? They're much smaller heads than the.
Yeah, because you can pretty much, it's up to you what kind of plants you're
Yeah.
using. You just got to go out there in the field
Just,
and find
again,
out.
the smaller,
exactly.
compact, lots of blooms.
Most of the time, it's stuff that is striking, not necessarily the size of blooms. It's how
Yeah.
many there are.
And then
of them.
I guess you would make the larger plants towards the middle or to the back.
Or to the back, depending on where your parterre is. Exactly.
And the contrasting colors is very important.
Right. Again, what you want is eye-catching. It's make your neighbors envious. Is what you.
You
Well,
wanna
the
watch
parterre,
space-
we want the neighbors to come
That's
over,
it.
right?
Want the neighbors coming over,
Right, that's
possibly.
right.
Now you got to watch the spacing too, because at one point they're going to kind of grow into each other,
Right.
aren't they?
So what you're going to do is right at the beginning, you're going to probably space them around a trowel's length. And that way, eventually, they will grow in. And in the meantime, you're going to be pinching them, creating new buds, new growth, and eventually they'll knit together, and you'll get this nice, massive color.
Right.
Right.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we've got the plant material. Now, what's the next step?
Basically, preparation. And that's the most important thing.
For the soil?
Right, you've picked your area, you've picked your location. Mainly what you're after is something that's on an angle, a slope, so again, it's going to be seen better. What you need to do then is check your soil. You don't want dry soil because it's very dusty. So maybe it is dry the day before, you want to wet it down so that the next day you're going to set in there and you're going to start digging it up. If it needs anything like compost to give it some structure, which will allow drainage, but also hold moisture, you would add that. You're going to rake it, and then you would add some organic fertilizer. General organic fertilizer is what you're after.
Before you plant.
Right.
Okay.
You're going to rake it out level so that it's nice and neat, but you don't want to be walking over it because you don't want to have to compact it down again. That's what you
Right.
don't want to do. And then basically what you want then is the plants that we've talked about, nice and healthy. And you just start beginning to plant them.
Do you plant from the inside out, I guess?
It's entirely up to you, but it's kind of like don't paint yourself into a corner.
Right.
kind of thing.
I'm stuck.
Right, that's
Now
it.
what do I do?
And that's
You
the
don't
nice
wanna do
thing
that.
about having this plan. You can actually look at the plan,
Right.
look at the ground, and you can visualize it in your head and then plant along. So it's just a pattern.
Now, I guess the question is, how do you maintain your garden?
Very easy. In the meantime, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be watering and you're going to be fertilizing maybe every 2 months just to keep that vigor going. But all you need to do then
Our
is...
beautiful parterre that you've put together for us.
Thank
This
you.
is our Disney at Home logo.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. On something like this, what you want to do is make sure that the grass doesn't grow into the flower bed, and the easiest thing to do then is use the clippers just to edge that. It's easier than using the string weedies because you don't want to cut these up. And then just going through and carefully deadheading any of these old heads to stop the seeds, but then
The
producing
deadheading is the picking off of all the dead
That's it,
flowers.
exactly.
And that's what keeps the plant wanting to produce more new blooms.
That's it. And then you
Keeps that color,
and it
too.
also
Yeah,
fills it
it's
in,
great.
Yeah.
and it'll start spreading.
About how long will that take to fill in all the spaces?
Well, here in Florida, just a couple of weeks. Yeah, it's as
Yeah.
fast as that. Yeah.
Terry, beautiful. Thank you for
Thank you.
taking care of our
And
Disney
our
at
lovely
Home logo.
at-home logo.
All right.
Thank you
terrific.
very much.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thanks a lot. All right.
Wow.
Great.
Take a look at this, Don. Oh, no.
To make your own parterre flower bed, here's what you'll need. A sketch of your design, some mature compost, fertilizer, a shovel, tiller, and trowel, some string and stakes, a rake, and bedding plants enough to allow 6-inch spacing, about 3 to 4 plants per square foot of your design.
Don, you know, when people talk about stories, they usually refer to books or movies or television, but actually there's a story in every garden.
Well, Connie, there's a story in every good garden. But you know, some gardens are like some stories. They lead us around and then they don't take us anywhere. Well, those that we love are those that grab our attention and hold it. And these are the ones with significant themes and real focus.
That's true. And our focus in this segment is to show you theme planning in gardens. Now, we're at the atrium at Disney's Polynesian Resort Hotel, and we are surrounded by beautiful orchids.
Honey, I've never seen so many orchids in one place. This is beautiful.
It's spectacular. Now, we're going to be talking about orchids a little later on. One of the things about Walt Disney World's gardens is they're committed to putting together a good show every day of the year.
And this presents a constant maintenance challenge. The hundreds of gardeners who keep these gardens and create the living, changing scenery, they've come up with some wonderfully creative ways to keep these gardens interesting, fun, and more beautiful every day.
They have, and one of these is a high art at Walt Disney World. It's called Telling the Story with Plants. And what that really is pulling shrubs and trees and flowers and other garden effects together to create a different time, theme, ambience, space.
And what a story they tell here.
Oh.
This is spectacular. Those are Phalaenopsis orchids, by the way. Catherine Blanks is a Walt Disney World gardener who specializes in this form of plant storytelling. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Well, it seems today that we have the Jungle Book story, is that right?
Yes, we do. We've created that theme with a lot of dark green, wide-leaved, exotic plants.
And orchids are a part of that too, aren't they?
Yes, they are a very big part.
Aren't these beautiful?
These
Look
are
at these.
beautiful.
We use orchids all over Walt Disney World property. We have them in the Magic Kingdom, Adventureland, Mexico, and Epcot, and at the Polynesian Resort.
Tell us how we can use orchids in different ways.
Well, today I'm going to show you how to install one in a tree.
Oh, wait now. I have a Phalaenopsis at home that we have on a shelf, and we, when it gets this pretty little spike, we bring it down on the coffee table. But you're saying that we can actually, at home, we can put these in the trees.
You sure can. You can bring life to a lot of different areas in your home.
Well, that's
with orchids.
really, Connie, that's
that would
fascinating.
paint a picture, definitely.
Okay, well, show us how to do
Let's
this.
see.
Okay. You want to pick a tree that will support your plant. And if you have a fork in the tree, the little crotch is an ideal place to put it.
Well, it's nice and light, so
Right.
it shouldn't take too much.
You can use this florist tape to install it with. You want to use something that's pliable so it doesn't cut your
So that's just this floor
plant.
tape you can get at a garden shop or
Yes, it
a
is.
flower shop.
People have used pantyhose at home to install them. They bring
Connie, you can
Way.
recycle your pantyhose.
Yes, we get a run now. We know what to do with it.
All right.
Your goal is to get this to grow onto the tree, so you'll be removing whatever you attach.
So it doesn't
with.
actually need soil then to grow in?
No, it doesn't. It's an epiphyte.
Oh, wait a minute. Epiphyte.
I
What is an
think I
epiphyte?
know what that means. It lives off another plant, right?
Right.
Did you know that
I
really?
knew
host
that.
plant.
I knew it, Dawn.
You've been talking
I'm
to
one up on you.
Orchids in their natural habitat grow in the tops of trees, so they don't
Don't they
need
grow
soil.
in the rainforests of
Yes,
South
they do.
America?
They get their nutrition from the moisture and the stuff that accumulates on them, the debris that accumulates on them.
If we live somewhere where it freezes, do we need to just forget orchids altogether, or?
No, they can you can install it in your house tree and bring it in and out.
Oh, so,
Oh,
you
so
could-
it is okay.
Right, and they take temperatures between 50 to 80 degrees. They can go up as high as 100 degrees, dip down as low as 30 degrees, and as long as frost doesn't accumulate on the foliage, it won't do them any harm.
What about light, though, with the orchids?
They need between 4 and 5 hours a day of bright light. You can add artificial lighting in your home to help with that, supplement it. But they use between 4 and 5 hours a day to get a nice bloom, and they can get that morning light and evening light.
So by
in
putting them in the
like
tree, they
this.
actually do get that morning light, and then when it gets real hot in the midday, the tree shades the orchid.
Right, and you need to do that in the real hot part of the day. It needs some shade anyway to keep from burning it.
What about, do you need to fertilize them and water them?
Right, you'll miss this about 3 times a week to get it started good, and
Okay.
then you'll cut back. You just don't want it to dry out. And you'll use a liquid fertilizer once a month on it.
Okay, a certain kind of fertilizer for orchids, is it different than the regular plants?
Well,
or-
there is a special orchid mix that you can purchase, but we use 20-20-20.
And you can get that at garden centers also?
Yes, anywhere.
This seems too easy.
It does,
Seems
doesn't
too
it?
easy.
It is very
looks
easy.
wonderful.
And it's beautiful, yeah. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine.
And I know you're going to go home
I
and try
am.
it.
I
know
definitely
you
am.
are. Next, we're going to consider how to create a unique effect that's often seen and Japanese gardens.
Well, that's right, Connie, but first we have to consider the difference between Western garden and Japanese gardens. There's really a basic philosophical difference.
There is.
And we do have an expert. Craig Chabot actually lived in Japan for 3 years and studied the art of Japanese gardening. He's now a Walt Disney World gardener, and he's responsible for the Japanese gardens at the Japan exhibit at the World Showcase here in Epcot.
Oh, and it's beautiful too.
Hi, Craig.
Hey, how you doing?
Welcome. Good to see you.
Hey, Craig.
Nice to meet
see
you.
Before we get into this, tell us about that basic philosophical difference.
I think the philosophical difference is that the Japanese gardener really makes it an extension of his lifestyles. One of the biggest things I've heard is that the garden is always in a state of becoming in the Japanese garden.
So it's really never finished.
Right, never finished, always changing and always taking on a new look or a new idea. So now we're going to start out with an idea. So the Japanese gardener thinks about where he wants to put that tree. He's looking in his garden, he has a specific idea, then he has a specific thought. So this one, for instance, this one here, I've chosen a black pine, and I want it cascading out over a pond. So what I've done is I've made a small sketch
that'll be nice.
of the pine,
Hey,
of how I
pretty
want
good.
it to look.
That's
in about
pretty good.
10
I mean,
you
you're
know,
an
about
artist
10 years. That's what I really saw it from it.
Okay.
So we've taken a visualization, we've got an idea on paper, and then we're going to move over to the tree and see if we can form that. Now it's not going to be perfect, but it takes time, and that's what we said. It's in a state of becoming and always has time. And we're going to start out with some of the tools that we use.
Okay.
And some of the tools are, we have to anchor the larger branches down that we want to manipulate into a certain form, we would use things called duck bills.
Oh,
And
you have some of these at home?
Actually, I don't have any duck bills. at
these
home.
actually just go, you actually just sink them into the soil, and then they actually turn up and create an anchor.
I see.
So they're just to hold the tree in place.
Exactly. These are for like the larger
Big
limbs that we're going to
Okay.
manipulate.
And if we
then
don't, if we can't get duck bills, then
if you can't get duck bills, we've actually made some small stakes that we would drive
okay.
into the ground. They may
We
be
can do that.
longer or
Can do
shorter or
that.
so forth. And then they're twine or rope to actually manipulate these branches. And then we've also some smaller branches that we may want to train. We would take usually bamboo or a smaller branch of another tree, or even just a piece of wood to manipulate those smaller
Anything
branches.
to hold it.
If you'd like to, you can help me out. Tom,
Oh,
if you'd
great,
like.
sure. I love to.
Don's
Sure,
got
you
some
know
tools
me.
in his hands.
Yes, watch
This,
out.
you can start here. We've got that limb there. Actually, this one, you cut that one there.
Okay.
So you're just going to
I'm gonna
start
cut
cutting.
this
And
one right
I see
here.
that you've marked the branches, so you really
Yeah,
have
I
planned
have.
this out ahead of time. You know
Yes,
exactly what
yes,
you're
we
going
have.
to do. You're not just.
We're really.
Craig, you're
So we
just cutting that
prune.
big old piece and you're not worried
Well,
at
the
all,
reason I
are
took
ya?
this one off is it's so big and it really countersinks the whole. Now this, actually I want this branch to come in and take its place. So we'll train this one to come over here and fill in here. And then we're going to move this one here.
So the smaller branches are actually easier to train, and the older
They are,
ones-
right,
Yeah.
right.
I see this green one right here. I take that one.
Yes, sure.
Oh
Great.
gosh, Don.
And this one
oh.
here.
Now, as we trim these, do we need to do anything where that fresh cut
No,
is?
we
or-
don't. We don't do anything to the cuts.
Does it
Okay.
hurt the tree at all, or?
No, not really at
No.
all. It's kind of helpful sometimes to
So we're-
clear out some of that older wood, or even just the
Yeah. We're really
it'll-
kind of sculpting here, aren't
Yeah,
we?
it's an art form. It's a definite art form.
This is
Is
great.
it similar to
You can even get this one here if you
bonsai?
like.
This one over here?
Bonsai,
Okay.
it's actually called.
Bonsai?
No, this is actually a dwarf. You're dwarfing a tree, and what they're doing in the Japanese garden is they don't have as much room in the garden, so they tend to make the trees smaller and train them, and that's where the technique derived from is the actual.
Craig, I'm just cutting any
size.
place I see a green mark.
All right,
okay?
thanks. That's great. I'm going to get
Wow,
this
this
one
is
right
looking
here.
great, isn't it?
Now, you were talking this goes over a pond, so that can also create a nice shade for the
Yeah,
fish. isn't
right,
it?
exactly.
Did you have that in mind as you were thinking?
Yes, I did. That's one of the big things
good
I
for
had.
you.
So it's functional as well as decorative.
Right, exactly. So there's some of the
Okay.
limbs.
So
and
now
you can
we-
see the
we
tree
get it
actually taking a
trimmed.
change.
Oh,
Okay.
my, look at that big piece he's taking off, Don.
Wow, he's really sculpting this tree.
I know. You're looking in, where do you think,
Okay, so we.
10 years before
Yeah.
your idea comes across,
I'd
you
say,
think?
a good 5 to 10, yeah. And if I change my mind, I still
Yeah.
have I'll have new branches to train, or
This
that's
is
where,
true.
we'll get new. This
So there'll
one
be
here.
new growth where we
Right.
trimmed, and it is that ongoing process.
Right, you can even cut here.
Yeah.
We want it to break a little.
This one too?
Right, we want
Okay.
it right there.
Right there?
That's fine.
Great.
And that's
you-
fine for you, isn't it? If you do want to change your mind throughout it. I mean,
Sure,
that's what it's
sure.
all about.
Right.
It's your idea and your
It's-
view.
Right, exactly. It's
So
there,
once
it's
we,
your garden.
Once we
Wow.
get the trimming completed, then we also have to tie them, right? To
Correct.
create the shit. We're actually bending.
Yeah.
We're actually manipulating the
Okay,
branches
so
in
we
certain
tie-
ways.
Can you tie them too tight?
You can tie them too tight, and it'll create a girdling effect. Remember, you're making a conscientious decision to train a tree, so you're not just going to plant it and leave it.
Right.
You're actually training. So you're really into it. You know, you've gotten to another level of gardening, and that's where the girdling. It's not going to girdle because you're going to be checking it throughout the seasons.
Right.
So if we feel like it's growing and it's getting too tight, we can loosen
right,
it and then
and
retie.
that's a good thing is when you do go back and check the girdling and you cut it off, it may be getting a little too tight. Then you're actually you're going to find out if your training is working. Your pulling of the branches, it's going to tell you if it's actually going to take effect, or you need to leave it on, or you can even move it.
Well, Craig, we've trimmed the tree and we've shaped it, and and we've got it in place now. So what do we do next? What else would we do to complement the this tree?
Well, in the
garden?
Japanese garden, and where this tree is actually going to be going, I have turf coming right up to the tree, and then I've inlaid larger rocks in it to make it look like a kind of a stepping stones, or even put pine straw around it, or you can just leave it blank with just soil and have it turf run up a little bit to it and leave a nice little soil around it. That's fine too.
That's typically what the Japanese do, isn't
They
it?
do, like not much mulch or anything like that.
And they use a lot of rocks and stone and sand, along with the living
And
material.
that is another
natural.
part.
I told you he was an expert.
He is. That's what 3
Thanks,
years in
Craig.
Japan
Thank you.
does
That's
for you.
right.
All right, thanks very
Craig,
much.
Thanks a
Terrific.
lot.
We've just learned how to grow orchids onto a tree. Here's what you'll need at home. Pick a tree that gets 4 to 5 hours of bright light a day. You'll need orchids and gardener's tie tape or old pantyhose.
To dwarf a tree in the Japanese style, you'll need a black pine tree, a sketch of your plan for the tree, duckbill anchors or stakes and rope for training larger branches, bamboo stakes for training smaller branches, pruning shears, and a pruning saw.
Oh, it's Rafiki and Simba.
With an Aztec grass beard.
Hey, oh, watch out, Pumbaa is right behind you.
With an evergreen giant liriope mane.
Not bad at all. Oh, Zazu just landed.
Creeping ficus. I have to confess, I've been talking to the Disney experts.
He has.
You know, these all have one thing in common. They're all forms of topiary. And what could be more magical than to create a creature in your backyard that people will ask constantly, as they do here, are they real?
You know, many people think they are. In fact, Don, the smaller guests who visit Disney World come up to the characters, they talk to them, and they say they talk right back.
Do you hear voices?
Part of the Disney magic.
Well, topiary is anything but new.
5,000 years.
That's right, it dates back to ancient Babylon, but these look like they belong right here.
Oh.
Where else would you find a green elephant conga line, or my favorite, Mufasa, with his mondo grass mane?
Is this unbelievable? Wow. Now, where do you suppose he began his fantasy life?
In a chlorophyll zoo?
Exactly right, a chlorophyll zoo. And that's where we are right now in the behind-the-scenes work area at Walt Disney World.
Well, how many of these critters live here?
Oh, hundreds.
You see them everywhere. You even start to look for them, don't you? Well, are they all this big?
Well, actually, they're all this unique. They've got seals and elephants, all the Disney characters. They've also got intricate mazes and formal hedges, too.
Well, Connie, I'm hooked. Let's learn how we can make a topiary for our own backyard. Well, topiary is certainly part of the magic that brings us to the Disney World parks and resorts. But you know, Connie, to guests who are avid gardeners like myself,
And he is.
we look at these characters and we think, wow, these are incredible.
And they are.
But some of these are 14 feet tall. How do I do what Disney does in a large theme park in my own backyard?
Very good question, and that's the question that we're going to ask our Walt Disney World expert topiary gardener, Jessie Mack. Hi, Jessie.
Hi, Jessie.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Tell us about topiary, my favorite thing here.
Well, Walt actually first discovered topiary for himself when he was over in Europe. And when he returned back here to America, he combined the talents of his animators with his landscape gardeners to create some of his first topiaries, and some which debuted in 1963, one being Dumbo.
Wow. Tell me about the topiary here at Walt Disney World.
Well, there's over 175 topiaries throughout all of Walt Disney World property here, and that includes Magic Kingdom, Disney MGM Studios, Epcot, Village and Marketplace.
They're also throughout the resorts, aren't they? I've seen them
Yes,
at the different
Contemporary
resort
B1,
hotels.
yes.
Now, Disney has its own unique style. How does that work with you guys?
Well, topiary gardening, or the Disney style, actually, being that it's so complex, the gardeners have kind of had to adapt to that and create unique and complex ways and methods of creating such topiaries. And with this method, it can take anywhere from 10 years to create a shrub topiary,
or up to 1 month, a little less than a month, to create a sphagnum topiary.
Wow, what types of topiary are there?
Well, there's your geometric form type topiary, which is free forming. Then there's your sphagnum character topiary, and also your shrub character topiary.
Well, why don't we start with the geometric topiary? Is that okay?
Sure.
Here we are. We're going to start with our geometric form type topiary, and this is just a juniper. We like to start with one that's straight, tall, just to kind of help in it. And then you can prune throughout. So what we do, we take a ribbon, just take a ribbon tied to the very top. Just work our way
Just
around
wrap around
there.
here?
Just wrap around, not too tight.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right.
Yeah, you like to hug that.
Yeah. It's kind of fun.
Hey, you're doing a pretty good job of
I
this.
am.
And you're going to end up wrapping that all the way around till you come to the bottom.
And then tie it down here?
Is to tie it round back. And the reason for this, it's just as your guideline for where you're going to make your cuts at.
So
And
wherever
you're
you lay
gonna
that
cut,
is where?
Exactly. You're
Okay.
going to cut in between on the ribbon.
Oh.
Hang on, I'll be there in a second.
Okay.
Be patient.
So as the way the way you lay that is the way it's going to go.
Exactly.
So.
You're going to cut in there. We're going to take our pruners, and you're not going to make any serious cuts too hard. You're going to start kind of lightly, just to kind of give yourself an idea of where you want to cut and how you want to form. And
So
just
we're
to
actually
make
trimming
sure
in between the
You're trimming in
ribbons.
between the ribbons.
Ah.
And that's just to kind of eye it as you go along to make sure that you're kind of going in the right sequence and you're not going to just keep cutting and cut the wrong thing. So this way you can correct yourself if that happens. We also like to use a juniper because they're pretty thick, and it's filled in really nice so that when you take a section out, it's not going to be blocky and missing a lot of sections there.
And you do cut these all the way to the
Yes, you're going to cut it all the way back, and if you can look on the one that
There
we've
we
already
go.
done,
This one's
you
finished.
can see right here.
Oh, yeah.
How
Now,
we've
this is a
taken
different
extra
kind. What is this?
sections. This is a pricklier type of juniper.
But it's another kind of juniper.
Yes, we didn't start with the same size as you can see,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really matter on the height. A lot of people even take old shrubs around the house that are already planted in that they want to kind of add some character to. They're out in the yard.
Right.
So they'll take them and they'll make like clouds and such with them in poodle type shapes.
So what else do we do here?
Well, once you've done that, then you're just going to want to keep it fertilized, and then anytime once it started growing a little bit, you're just going to come through and just kind of clean it up.
Keep it
Trim
trimmed.
up any parts that have grown up and just fertilize it like everything else.
So that's actually pretty easy.
Yeah.
Pretty easy. Your geometric type topiaries are pretty much your easiest ones to do. For those who aren't quite so patient and want something right away, you can start with a full-grown tree and then work from that.
Okay, I want to know about the world famous topiary here at Walt Disney World.
Well, we have our famous topiary, as you see here, and for those who like to take them home with them, we have little tabletop topiaries.
So we really do have the miniature version of the larger topiary that we can take home.
Sure do, when you can fit right in your pocket.
Okay.
Show us how to do this. Is it pretty simple?
It's relatively simple. It's just going to take a little bit more time for it to grow and such. Not kind of a quick little guy as this one right here, but it's relatively easy. A lot of people like to do it.
Okay.
It just pretty much starts out with a plain frame, and you can either purchase just a frame, or here at Walt Disney World, we do sell the topiaries already stuffed with your sphagnum.
So you can actually buy these just like this.
Sure can.
Right here.
Sure
Oh,
can.
that's easy.
And
Okay.
that one starts the same as this, just an open, empty frame.
That's the frame underneath all the
Yep.
stuff.
Yep. Welcome you in. So we'll start out with our little frame here.
Okay.
Then we're
Little
gonna
Mickey.
put our gloves on.
Oh yeah, because we're messing with sphagnum.
Sphagnum.
There, it's difficult for me to say, but
Yeah,
I'm getting there.
that's a crazy word. And I like to keep the gloves on because there's some unshaven parts in here of the sphagnum, so some rough pieces that you wouldn't want to get in your hands. So
No.
I think you said also earlier that this is the unmilled sphagnum, right?
this is the unmilled sphagnum.
Yeah, it's coarser.
Very coarse, very
Yeah.
coarse. A lot of rough pieces in there. So you can buy this at your local home and garden center, and it's going to be in a bag and very, very dry. So before you're about ready to start with your topiary frame, you're going to want to get this totally saturated with water.
That takes just a little bit of time
Takes
to
a
do
little
that.
bit of time,
Okay.
yeah. So you're just going to want to fill your bucket with some water, set a little bit at a time, and you'll know when it's saturated that you can actually squeeze excess water out of there.
Okay.
I love doing that part too. That's great. So once you've got your sphagnum totally saturated,
We're gonna build it.
we're going to build. You're going to take big clumps of it. Not too big, because you're going to want to be able to fit it inside these little spaces that are here.
Okay.
So you're going to take it and you're going to stuff it and you're going to make it as tight as possible and just keep stuffing more and more in there until it's really tight and compact in there.
How does it hold in there?
Well, once we've done this and we've stuffed it in quite a bit, then we're going to take just regular old fishing
line.
You can borrow this from your husband or even take it without knowing.
Yeah, he'll never know.
Never know. We're going to actually go around.
Wrap it around.
Wrap it around. And some people can like to do it in sections so that they don't get too far ahead of themselves. So just wrap it around, and this is you're gonna go several times around just to make sure you got it pretty tight in there.
Okay.
This is just to make sure that it doesn't fall out of any gaps or anything like that. So basically, then you're gonna work all the way around till it's completely filled.
And it's gonna look like this.
It's gonna end up looking like that.
All right.
So once we get to that stage and we've got our sphagnum topiary frame completely stuck with the sphagnum, then we're going to come along and we're going to take what's called a dibble.
A dibble.
Dibble.
We've learned about that, haven't we?
This is just like a little seed dibble that you can buy at a garden center or such like that. It's usually used to make holes for seeds. And if you can't find a dibble, scissors will work just fine. Basically, all you're trying to do is to make a hole right in here. This isn't hurting him at all.
It looks like
it looks painful to me.
Yeah, it's not hurting
his
him at
hands
all.
are going out and everything. Are you sure?
So basically, you're just going to try and want to make a hole big enough that you can fit.
And what type of plant is this?
This is a creeping ficus.
Okay.
It's the same family as a ficus tree, but it's just a creeping form. And you're going to want to take that, or if not a plug, some kind of a seedling that doesn't have a lot of soil around its roots.
Stick it right in there?
Stick it right in there.
You don't have to
Shove
be
it on
gentle,
in there.
do you?
Don't have to be gentle.
Shove it.
Just shove it, because you're going to want to try and get it in there as far as possible so that it can start to root.
I bet I know what's next. You take hairpins?
Just your ordinary hairpins.
Ah, and then you just cling it onto there, huh?
Yep, you're going to lay that down wherever you want to go. And there you go.
And that's how it molds all the way around.
And that's why we use that creeping ficus, because it starts to root around and it's going to grab on a lot better.
Now, how do you fertilize this?
You fertilize, we've got right here just a liquid fertilizer. And when you water it, because you're going to want to keep it watered very often, you don't want it to dry out because it's going to take a long time.
Keep it moist all the time.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And occasionally when you're doing a watering session, you can mix up some of your liquid fertilizer and pour it on top and keep fertilized. That'll help keep it green. You'll notice it'll start yellowing out if you don't give them any fertilizer.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
And it needs to eat.
It'll be a clue, won't
It'll
it?
be a
a big
yes.
clue.
So once you've done that, then you're going to cover your whole topiary, and it's going to cover.
So this one
Start looking like this one.
starts
It's gonna
looking
look
like
just
that.
like this guy right here. And he's completely covered.
He needs a little trim job,
after
though, doesn't
a
he?
while, he's going to kind of grow out, and you're going to want to take off any little pieces that are hanging around or anything like that that's not going to lay down real nice.
Just simply with some scissors, just trim it up.
Just give him like a haircut.
Okay, it's hard for me to cut plants, so you can do it, or that's not. How long does it take to get about this way?
Well, actually, that's why you cover it completely, but to fill in, it may take about a week or so, just the life of the plant to grow, just like any other plant. But you're definitely going to want to keep them moistened and keep them watered.
If you
Water
get really,
and fertilizer, we hear that a lot.
a whole lot.
Don't
If
we?
you get really good, then you can come to Disney World, work here, and make these.
You can make the big guys.
Those are wonderful.
Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. That's
You're
great.
welcome.
I'm going to take this little guy home. Okay?
Okay.
He is.
I really.
To make a spiral geometric topiary, here's what you'll need. A young evergreen shrub like a juniper, a roll of ribbon or string, some hand pruners, and hedge shears. To make a sphagnum character topiary, you'll need a sturdy wire frame, unmilled sphagnum moss, florist or hairpins, some fishing line, small plants or rooted cuttings like creeping fig. You'll also need a bucket, scissors, hand pruners, and gloves.
Hey Don, out of all the things that we've talked about, what do you think is the most important to our home viewer?
Well, Connie, I think it's something we haven't talked about yet.
I think you're right. Gardening practices here are continually monitored for environmental awareness. For example, Walt Disney World gardeners conserve water by using recycled water for irrigation, vehicle washing, and also in the decorative fountains that you see. They also practice integrated pest management as an alternative to chemical pesticides. This is something I'm looking forward to hearing about. And one of the ladies responsible for environmental initiatives at Walt Disney World, and she's from the Disney Institute, Tanya Peak. Hi there, Tanya.
Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
Tanya.
Can you tell us how we can all be more environmentally aware?
Sure. There's 6 things we do here at Disney on a large scale that the home gardener can do at home on a much smaller scale. We use mulch, we compost, we try to use the right plant in the right place whenever we can. We try to conserve water. We use integrated pest management, or the good bugs that eat the bad bugs. And we also try to use hand tools whenever possible instead of the power tools.
Now you were talking about mulching. tell us more about that.
Right. Mulching, first of all, it looks pretty. Second of all, it helps reducing water loss from the soil because it creates a barrier so the sun doesn't hit it. It also helps to reduce the weed cost so that we don't have to spray pesticides that might harm the plants later.
Now, do you compost in your
Yeah,
backyard?
I compost in my
think you do.
backyard.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. Composting is natural remains of the earth. It can be made out of soft, crumbly matter. You can use sewage sludge, which we use here. You might not want to use that at home, though.
Well, I take every evening I take a bucket of leftover food scraps and materials, organic materials from the kitchen, and I take it out and put it on the compost pile.
Can you imagine the size of our compost? We do that for our kitchens all over property.
Really?
Oh my!
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to be around it.
And,
You know?
foliage and stuff, materials that fall off of trees and
Right,
things.
all the landscape waste that we have here.
And I think
all of it
I
goes.
learned that an important part of composting is that you have to keep it moist.
That's right. You have to keep water on it. You have to turn it pretty often.
Yep,
to
you
keep
turn
that
it
air
over
moving
and keep
through
it moist, and it
needs
turns just as black. It's really very,
It
very
sure
rich.
does.
Yeah.
It's what would naturally be in the soil, if the leaves were falling on the ground naturally. But because we farm our soil so much, we take a lot out of them with all we plant in them. We have to add that material in.
Now, you were talking about the right plant at the right place. What does that mean?
That's right. That means if we've got an area that's dry, instead of having to plant something that's going to take a lot of water, where we're going to have to put in a lot of irrigation, we try to use cacti or a plant that is more suited, to the natural dry area.
Where you use the natural materials that come from that environment to naturally grow there.
Right.
Bugs, bugs, bugs.
That's right.
I got to tell you, Connie, the thing that bugs me most about my garden is bugs. What can I do?
Bugs.
Right. Well, the first thing you do is you find whether it's a good bug or a bad bug. You don't want to spray the good bugs. Lady beetles are good bugs. I have some right here, some Opius wasp.
Opius wasp?
Right.
That's a little bitty thing.
That's right. What it does is it lays its egg inside of the bad bug, the leaf miner, and then when it hatches out, instead of a leaf miner hatching out, this little Opius wasp hatches out.
Oh, wow.
We release them all over property. We release 1.5 million bugs all over here on
You actually
property.
turn bugs loose
That's
on
right,
the
we
property.
release
the good bugs.
How many bugs do you release a year?
About 1.5 million insects.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of bugs.
Well, I have to tell you, I have a problem right now in my backyard. I have some daylilies, and they have lots of little white flies all over them.
Lots of little white flies. Those are
Yeah.
very easy to take care of. Sometimes we can't release insects. It's just not a pest that's raised that we can release.
We're going to mix a little dishwashing liquid and a little bit of vegetable or canola oil. Now make sure with that dishwashing liquid it doesn't have any degreasers in it, that it's a mild one. And then we're going to mix that with some water in a squirt bottle and squirt it right on the plants.
But you got to spray it fairly often because those life cycles, they're going to repeat every 4 to 7 days.
Oh, so you've got to do it at least once a week then?
Right, you're going to have to do
For
it
how
because all
long
those
till
life
you get-
cycles. Probably about 4 times.
Okay. All right.
We
well,
can call her the bug lady, can't
Tanya the bug
we?
lady.
Did they call you that?
Yes, they sure
Bug
do.
girl? Now I got to ask you about this. I see when I walk around Walt Disney World that they use a lot of hand tools and not power tools. Is there a reason behind that?
That's right. There's no point in using the power tools unless we're in a big emergency. We will use them as a last resort. But generally, we try and use the hand tools. It saves on the gas, saves on electricity,
Right.
a little more labor, but it's really worth it.
I also noticed that you recycle plant materials and containers. Is that?
That's right. I mean, why throw something away when you can use it again? I've already talked about how we recycle all our old plant material. We compost it. Our containers we try to use again, or we give them back to the growers. And the water, we even try to conserve water. I mean, why? We have very special spray heads that just spray the plant material. Why spray the sidewalks? They aren't going to grow anymore.
Right. That's right.
Well, Tanya, I have to ask you one more thing. I'd heard this, that you can actually use garlic for a...
That's
as
right, a very
pesticide?
natural pesticide. What you do is you mix a little bit of garlic juice to where it gets real stinky in a squirt bottle, and then you just spray it on your plant. Orange trees are great for that. And what it's going to do is it's going to keep away the insects. They don't like that smell of garlic any more than you do.
Well, it works with people, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Right, vampires, bugs, and people.
Tanya, thank you very much. We
Thank
learned
you.
quite a bit.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
The bug lady.
The good bug lady. Walt Disney opened Disneyland in 1955 saying, "I want something alive, something that will grow. Not only can I add things, but even the trees will keep growing, and it'll get more beautiful each year."
These words apply equally well to your garden.
Sure do.
We hope you've enjoyed this look at Disney's garden magic and that you've learned some magic that you can take home and put into your garden.
And we hope the next time you come to Disney World, you'll look at our gardens in a new light.
And please stop and say hello and talk to the gardeners. They'll be happy to talk to you about what's new in our gardens or yours. We'll see you soon at Walt Disney World.
Keep watching for more unique adventures in cooking, entertaining, decorating, and gardening with the Disney experts on Walt Disney World at Home.
For more information on the Epcot International Flower and Garden Festival held annually at Epcot between mid-April and June, contact Walt Disney World Guest Information at 407-824-4321 or write Walt Disney World Guest Information Department, P.O. Box 10,000, Lake Buena Vista, Florida 32830-1000.